Hey PA 4-H, my name is Sherlan and I'm here actually at the fair. It's our fair week, so forgive any background noises or interruptions, but I'm actually here at the fair and I'm repping my YF&R shirt. But today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about 4-H across the world. So a lot of people know about 4-H in their own county or in their own state, or even if you've been to a couple national events, 4-H across our country. But did you know that there's actually 4-H programs in more than 50 countries across the world? 4-H is one of the largest youth development organizations in the world. So by you being a 4-Her, you're actually connected to about 7 million people, kind of just like you, in 4-H programs in all different countries, in all different parts of the world. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So in the world today, there's about 7.3 billion people, which is a lot of people. However, that number is only going to continue to rise. And by 2030, that number is expected to reach 8.5 billion people. And by 2050, to rise to 9.7 billion people. So the more people there are, the more food we're going to need. Between a changing climate and water shortages and famine and disputes over land already, we're reaching a crisis point where already stressed out farmers and the ag industry today is going to have to increase food production to feed all of these people in the world. So we're hitting this crisis point where we actually need to do something, because hunger is already killing more than AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. And in order to meet that, food production is going to have to double by 2050 to meet the population demands. So we have a problem here where we have a lot of people which are going to need a lot more food, and the issue is currently how we're going to come up with that food to feed these people. So there are currently 1.3 billion youth in the world between 12 to 14 years old. Many of these are rural youth who live in areas that lack the proper resources to provide them with the tools they need to be self-sustainable. So the idea is to harness that power of youth into a green revolution and give these youth the tools they need to become farmers and food producers in their own community and be self-sustaining for a long time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 4-H is one of the largest youth development organizations in the world. So it makes sense that 4-H would be at the front runner of empowering these youth through positive youth development. If you know anything about the way the 4-H program works in Pennsylvania, that should sound pretty similar to what we're doing here. So the kind of 4-H formula for how this is going to work is to give youth practical skills that they can use, so sort of like project areas that we have here. So that practical skill building, partner that with meaningful leadership roles. So that could be in their clubs or their schools and just in their community to teach them the leadership skills they'll need. And then finally to pair them with meaningful adult relationships as well, and have that connection with a caring adult that's going to help to guide them on the right paths that they'll need. So those kind of three aspects are the 4-H formula, not just in the United States, but throughout the whole world. This is a map of 4-H around the world, so you can see the countries in green have independent country-led 4-H programs. The 4-H Partnership in Africa is an initiative to create more community-based 4-H organizations in African countries. So currently there's about 15 countries in Africa with established 4-H programs, with new countries being interested in every year in starting up a program. And a lot of these are at the local level to improve the self-sustaining youth population in creating their own food. For example, there's a very successful program in Ghana called the 4-H Enterprise Garden Model. And how it works is youth, either in school or out of school, plant and manage a food-producing garden. And then they're taught a business plan to kind of grow their enterprise. So that helps them to become self-sustaining and then provide back to their own communities. So that's how the program works a little bit in Ghana. In May, the 4-H Council had the opportunity to actually Skype with a 4-H club in Ghana. So I don't know, some of you might remember at the State Leadership Conference we had a representative from 4-H Ghana named Boat, and he came and spoke to us about the program, and they're learning about our program here in Pennsylvania, and in turn us learning a little bit about Ghana's program. But because of that connection, we actually were able to have a Skype meeting with a club in Ghana, which was very cool, and we got to actually talk to some of the 4-Hers and learn about their projects and what they were doing in their communities with 4-H. A lot of it was more crop oriented, which was really interesting. We did our 4-H pledge for them, and they did theirs for us. We also talked a little bit about some songs that we do. We did I'm a Super 4-Her for them. They sung and they even sung and danced for us, and then in turn we had to sing and dance, but we're not as great at dancers as they are, so it was definitely a fun experience. But just to have that connection to youth our own age in a different country was really a cool experience, and we hope to keep in contact with them and maybe hopefully start a pen pal program to kind of keep in contact with them. So it was definitely a very cool experience, and just gave us a first look at 4-H in a different country. Also, one thing that I thought was really interesting was that not all 4-H countries have the same 4-H logo. So obviously here in the US and in Pennsylvania, we use the 4-leaf clover with the H's in the middle to represent head, heart, hands, and health. And some countries have a variation of the clover, but they're not all identical. So this is a picture of 4-H logos from all different countries, and you can see how some of them are different, some of them are similar. So another great thing that 4-H is doing, not just to empower youth, but to specifically target girls and young women in 4-H and empower them. So the Nike Foundation and 4-H Tanzania actually partnered to do an assessment of some barriers that are currently facing young girls in education and ag, especially in developing countries. So some of the barriers they found included a lack of support and awareness from parents, under-equipped adult advisors to engage girls in 4-H clubs, deeply rooted cultural practices that prohibit girls from participating in some social and economic activities. There's less access to resources than their male counterparts in 4-H activities, including things like tools and inputs. But what they did with that assessment, they took those barriers and created a 4-H gender toolkit, which has been given to parents and advisors and teachers in that region to address the issues and the barriers facing those young girls. And it's now available throughout the region. So anyone who needs it has access to it, and it's continuing to impact girls throughout that part of the world. And there's actually, in 4-H today, there's more than 3.5 million girls and young women are leading in the 4-H today. So that's a really cool thing as well. So the first 4-H Network Summit, Global 4-H Network Summit, was held in 2014 in Seoul, South Korea. There they actually elected and chose 2 representatives from each region. So there's 4-H region in Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and North America, and they formed a board of directors. So those board of directors are known as the Global 4-H Network. So the network does things to help spread the 4-H program throughout the world and create a sort of mission statement to follow in all different countries. So November 1st is Global 4-H Day, so make sure you mark your calendars for that. And then just this past year, in 2017, the summit was held in Ottawa, Canada. All the information I've shared with you today can be found online, so if you're interested about reading more, you can find it all at the links below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've learned a little bit about 4-H in the world today.